In boardrooms today, three questions keep coming back like a heartbeat. Can we trust our data? Can we trust our controls? And can we trust AI that's now touching everything? Regulations are tightened, expectations. Attackers are weaponizing automation. Talent is moving where trust is stronger than fear. In this evident, GRC is no longer a slow back office checklist. It's a control tower for how organizations survive, grow, protect their people in the AI fueled threat landscape. For CXOs, CHROs, and ambitious professionals, this is no longer a theoretical debate, it's a strategic growth, human capital, and careers all converging into one hard reality. However, can GRC and AI into trust and control and opportunity lead the next decade? Today, we are joined by the leader who have spent years in intersection of cybersecurity, risk governance, and people, shaping how organizations think about trust and enterprise. Dr. Ram Kumar G is a cybersecurity leader and a 5x top voice in cybersecurity, certified corporate director, author, mentor, and award jury member. Let's welcome our speaker to the podcast event and dive into the topic. Hi, Ram sir. Welcome to our
Hello,
show, sir.
thank you. Thank
How are
you
you,
for
sir?
having me again. I'm good. How are you?
Good, sir. Sir,
Great.
to the GRC professionals, this is one podcast that we want to look at growing the GRC community. So, this is a special podcast that we have started, and we
Awesome.
have the honor of having you on our first episode, sir. A small
Awesome.
intro about yourself, about your journey on GRC and control, sir.
Sure. I am Dr. Ram Kumar. I currently work for a global automotive company. I specialize primarily in cybersecurity GRC domain. I have about 22 years experience in this domain, and most part of my career I spent in building security programs, primarily into compliances, various compliances, ISO 27001, PCI DSS, so on and so forth. And this is a very exciting domain because it's where I cut my teeth in cybersecurity. I'm happy to be here to share my insights in this podcast.
Thank you, Ram sir. Ram sir, why does compliance still fail even when organizations have all the right policies in place?
You see, it's a very common paradox. Just because we have a policy doesn't mean we'll still, be compliant and secure. First of all, let's understand a policy is just a document, right? Unless it is implemented, tested, and only then we can be assured to some extent whether our controls are in place. Most importantly, security is all about behavior, the right kind of behavior and the culture. It cannot be assured through a policy document, which is merely a intent of will by the management. So this gap between paper and practice is something we need to address because many organizations frequently fail and to treat cybersecurity to the right spirit, right? It has to be done in the right way rather than just a check the box exercise. And many of them they just want a certification or attestation, and then they just go through the motions as just like a tick the box exercise. That's not going to help. Security is a living culture, right? And so that's the reason we find often when companies do not have the proper aptitude towards security, the implementation gaps actually do them in. And there is often a disconnect between, your high level policies, which is, as I said, it's a very, intent statement and the technical reality, what kind of controls we have in place, right? So policy may state, it may mandate have the right strict access control, but the team that is implementing doesn't have the right tools or right processes, then it is going to be a problem. So there is always a friction versus productivity issue. How the security policies, when they make it difficult for employees to do their jobs, routine jobs, they'll always find a way, kind of bypassing the control or bypassing the solution. They'll have some workarounds. And that leads to sometimes, shadow IT, and that is not a right thing to do. Static, which is not looked at as a living document. Whatever you wrote maybe 4 years, 5 years back in the day, people still threat landscape. It is not reviewed. It is not revised, right? And there is no context to the policy because things have changed in the meantime, right? To the business, to the technology environment, to the compliance-related controls. Even if you are 100% compliant, say for a standard like PCI DSS or ISO 27001, you can still be vulnerable, or or a new zero-day exploit can actually create havoc, or a very sophisticated social engineering campaign can create an issue, right? And people can fall for social engineering, attempts. So problem is the compliance when they fail despite having solid policies, because there is gaps in the execution. Yeah, people are not trained. Human factor is actually pretty weak. We all know that, and there are organizational challenges. So the point I'm trying to drive is policies alone don't guarantee protection without proper implementation and adaptation to the real world threats, right? And let us understand this. Compliance is the floor, not the ceiling, right? So when organizations fail, when they look at a policy manual will actually ensure security. It's a very wrong belief. Real resilience requires continuous monitoring, executive buy-in, right resources, and a culture where every employee understands the why behind the rules, right? So these are some of the points I want to share for this question.
So, where do we see the biggest gap between beautifully written policies and the messy ones? Operational reality of controls on grounds.
Hmm. Okay, see, I'll tell you, I can give you an example. Uh, the Everything looks very rosy and perfect on paper, but when you have something missing, right, a missing control can turn into a major risk or a near miss. So we had this instance in the past, we had Capital One 2019 cloud breach. That something comes to my mind. So this company appeared to have very robust cloud infra on AWS, and overall their security measures were pretty strong, and they were in place for a major US bank handling millions of credit applications, right? However, a single missing control, like a misconfigured web application firewall rule, this was allowed former AWS engineer to exploit a server side request forgery, right? And this vulnerability was exploited by the engineer, ex employee, and it could access data in over more than 100 million customers, including their names, credit card details, the credit scores, and social security numbers. So this oversight turned a seemingly secure setup into a massive breach. It cost the company millions in legal settlements and regulatory fines. So what key missing control we find here is the inadequate firewall configuration in the cloud environment, which failed to restrict unauthorized access to sensitive data buckets. Despite you having the company having other controls like encryption, right? So automated configuration scans and least privilege access are some of the solutions that could have detected and prevented this exposure proactively. The key lessons to be learned from this incident is you can have regular cloud audits and real-time monitoring. These are is very essential as misconfigurations account for 15% for about 15% of breach entry points even in well organized security programs, right? And enforcing strict access controls must, and conducting very infrequently vulnerability scans. These can also help avoid these kind of near misses and also avoid incidents, right? So that's my take on this question.
Can you share one story where
Mhm.
everything looked perfect on paper, but
Mhm.
one missing control turned into a major risk or a near miss?
I think that's what I said, sir. We can skip this.
Okay, got it, sir. So, what is the real difference between having controls and
Okay.
being able to prove those controls work on demand?
Okay. Having controls actually doesn't mean it will work. We need to perform the control effectiveness test, control design test, right? So when you say we are having cybersecurity controls, means it implemented policies. You have the right tools and the relevant processes designed to protect systems and data, while proving that they work on demand requires verifiable evidence, right, for their ongoing effectiveness through audits, tests, and documentation. So that's the reason I was talking about this test of design and test of effectiveness. See, this gap arises because existence of a control does not guarantee operation under real conditions. As auditors, any seasoned auditor would demand tangible proof like logs, like test results to confirm the controls, to ensure they actually mitigate the risks effectively. The core difference, I would say in a few points, the controls represent planned defenses, right? That's the reason we have those controls, something like a firewall or access policies. But proof involves demonstrating functionality via methods like observation during audits, right? Or reperformance when the auditor asks you to perform a demo of the control effectiveness, whether it works or not. So without on-demand evidence, uh, organizations can face compliance failures despite strong documentation, right? As seen in cases where perfect procedures failed in real-world tests. So on paper, it may look great, but reality is something very different. A second point is you have to prove the effectiveness. So when auditors look for evidence, they verify through the documentary evidence like your policies and processes. They'll question the relevant stakeholders. They'll observe and test to see if these controls operate consistently over a period of time. And of course, we have tools like controls. Yes, monitoring and automated evidence, right? These actually bridge the gap, enabling real-time proof rather than a reactive scrambling. And the practical implications are something we need to take into account. So if you rely solely on control, risk breaches from unproven gaps, while proof actually builds that assurance, right? So saying that I have controls may not be really, effective unless you have way to prove that the control works as intended. So probably the regular testing through vulnerability scanning or simulations, and you need to demonstrate resilience. So these are the ways in which you can uh, understand the difference between the terms just having controls and your ability to prove these controls work as related on demand.
Sir, what is the real difference between having controls
Mhm.
and uh, how do we explain those controls versus proof gap on
Mhm.
boards and
Okay.
committees in a way that immediately make them understand our lands?
Okay. So the when you speak to the board, I always advocate that you need to speak in a language they understand. So not the technical jargon and go with all the technology stuff. You have to speak in a business language. So I'll give an analogy. So having all these security controls is like owning a fleet of fire extinguishers, right? So you scatter them across the building. So your policies, your tools are in place. Proving that they work on demand is like demonstrating during a fire drill that every extinguisher activates instantly and they suppress the flames effectively and leaves verifiable evidence like usage logs for inspections, right? So the gap emerges because controls can degrade silently. Today you may put a control, but due to the course of time, due to changes in technology and the threats, the sophistication, right? Now AI powered attacks are very common, so the traditional controls may not be effective. That means they have degraded. So, for example, misconfigurations or unpatched software. These are all examples of degrading silently. And when this degradation happens, it fails. When regulators or attackers test them, and leading to uh, data breaches and whatnot. You have fines, and all of this can happen despite having the perfect documentation. On paper, everything will look awesome, but when you test it, it is going to be a problem. I'll give you the boardroom analogy. Uh, you know how you imagine there is a luxury car with all safety features as advertised, your airbags, ABS, your collision sensors, and all of that. So control means the car has all of them installed. Proof means showing crash test videos, real-time diagnostics, then your repair logs on demand, proving they deploy reliably at 60 kilometers per hour or so, and not just look good in the brochure or advertisement. So this resonates because boards uh, grasp product liability, selling unproven safety risks lawsuits and probably the bad press and the fines and sometimes even jail terms. So just as unproven controls risk regulatory penalties exceeding millions, because all regulations are getting tighter and stricter. So if you risk the regulatory penalties, it is going to be trouble, big trouble. And I always suggest these tips when you deliver. So use this three-act story. So in Act One, your defense on paper, that is all your control list. In your Act Two, you have to ensure the crash is unproven, so breach cause, compliance failures, all of that. And in Act 3, the fix, the evidence tools yield your return on investments via avoided fines, right? So pair with one metric, say percentage of controls with on-demand proof, targeting 95%, for example, 95% plus shift from reactive audits to proactive assurance. So the impact could be, huge. This kind of framing cuts through all the technical jargon, aligning security to board priorities, right? Like financial risk and shareholder value, because these are stuff boards should be very much concerned about. And of course, promoting immediate budget for monitoring platforms. So these are the thoughts I thought I will share for this question when you are asking how do you explain controls versus proof gap to boards and probably audit or risk committees in a way they immediately lands whatever you need, resources and support.
Sir, if you had to define evidence ready in
Hmm.
one sentence, okay,
Hmm.
for a GRC team, what would it be, sir?
My take would be evidence ready means having an automated, auditable proof of control effectiveness instantly accessible for any regulator or any auditor or incident responder, for example, and it eliminates manual scrambles during compliance reviews. So, why this matters is the shift from GRC, the normal reactive evidence hunting to proactive assurance that actually helps in cutting the audit prep time, right, as much as 70%, and also exposing gaps before they trigger findings. So, how do you achieve it? Implement continuous monitoring platforms. There are many vendors who are offering this service, and these platforms, maps controls to live logs. They provide screenshots and test results. They can be tagged and exportable on demand. So that would be my take for this question.
Sir, why do you say that Excel has become one of the biggest hidden risks in modern GRC, sir?
Yeah, there's always a joke when people come with so many credentials, including fancy certifications and their solid graduation degrees. End of the day, in many organizations, they work in Excel spreadsheets, right? But on a serious note, Excel spreadsheets, though very convenient and very cheap, it poses massive hidden risk for
Hmm.
GRC domain as a whole, because they masquerade as very simple, flexible tools while creating version chaos, manual errors, and zero audit trails. Right? No, I don't think any seasoned auditor will accept Excel sheet as an solid evidence. It could turn critical risk registers into unprovable liabilities during audits. Right? So many companies, instead of investing in a proper GRC tool, GRC software, or a platform, they just go for Excel. That is not a good idea. So what starts is a very quick control matrix, right? Balloons into very siloed, outdated files, right, across teams, and this creates false assurance until regulators uh, demand evidence, and no one can produce without frantic email chains, and that is not a very professional way of managing or creating evidences and demonstrating compliance. So the key risks, to be more specific, is shadow IT explosion. For example, when you have different versions of uncontrolled spreadsheets having sensitive risk data, that is a big problem. Evading central monitoring, you do not have control over the versions, and you can also, be vulnerable to macro viruses and unauthorized shares. That is one major risk. Second thing is, unlike properly designed GRC platform, Excel lacks native versioning. So a single formula tweak or a cell can override and wipes out compliance proof, right? In SOX audits, we see this very often, and we think it is current, but it may be very older version or outdated version. And we also have problem with scalability. If you have very less number of risks, we can handle, but if it goes beyond a particular threshold and hundreds of risks, it might corrupt data, and also you'll have issues in aggregating all these mega Excel sheets, right? That's not a very uh, good way to manage your risk posture. And regulators, including TCOB, explicitly call out the use of spreadsheet is not a very ideal thing. Spreadsheet controls, right? And unmonitored Excel sheet use can actually fails to prove your accuracy or approvals, right? And other thing important is you should go for purpose-built GRC platforms. There's a lot of platforms that are available at different price points, and you can also customize as per your company's requirements, right? And they could deliver automated evidence, real-time updates, scalability, and you don't have to scramble ahead of an audit for the proper. So I think these points make it very sensible why Excel should not be used for modern GRC programs.
Sir, how should CXOs reframe compliance from
Mhm.
one-time project into a living and evolving system that keeps up AI-driven changes?
Yeah, AI has brought in a lot of good stuff and the not so good stuff. Both the defenders and the threat actors are leveraging AI.
Yeah.
So, in this context of this question, CXO should reframe compliance from a static annual checkbox exercise or into a very dynamic AI-powered operating system that continuously sends us regulatory shifts because the rate and pace at which the regulations are changing or getting introduced, new classes, new requirements, you need to leverage AI, and you need to automate control testing, and you have to adapt workflows in real time, like a self-updating GPS that you find in cars for managing your enterprise risk very optimally. So this shifts treats compliance as a embedded business intelligence, right, where AI agents probably can monitor global regulations. They can flag the gaps instantly because they know what's happening in the organization, what's the current security posture, and also simulate different what if scenarios for emerging AI ethics rules or responsible AI requirements, right? So this can help in slashing the audit cycles from months to days. The other important thing is how do you, what kind of core reframing steps you can do. One is embed AI horizons, meaning that deploying continuous scanning tools to ingest regulatory requirements. For example, the EU AI Act, and also automap to controls, turning compliance to productive analysis rather than a reactive filings, right? That is very important. And the second important thing is your how do you automate your evidence flows. So if you build platforms generating live proof of controls like logs and attestations on demand, it helps in freeing teams effort for focusing on strategic areas like threats like AI hallucinations in customer data, for example. And the board pitch, I would always suggest uh, something like this. Your compliance version 1.0 cost us so much, say, for example, 10 million in fines last year, chasing paper trials. Now, when you upgrade your compliance program, uh, say with the new versions, they call it as 2.0, with AI in building AI capabilities. This could deliver 4x of your ROI, right, via avoided penalties and faster market entry. So it is not exactly an overhead when you look at it from this perspective. It is actually a AI era solution. So this lands because it quantifies value. 70% less manual work, for example, real-time agility for AI innovation, and proves that positions the company as regulator ready uh, among the exploding AI mandates, right? So AI mandates are a way of life. Different countries, different industry sectors, regulators are bringing a lot of changes. I think this is the way to go.
Sir, adopting AI and following governance is a mindset shift, right? So,
Yeah.
what mindset shift needs to happen at the leadership level to treat
Mm.
compliance as a continuous operating system, not as phase one, phase two, go live stuff, right? So, how do you look at this, sir?
See, one thing the leaders have to be coached. They must shift from seeing compliance as a one-time project with the rigid phases to uh, embracing it as an embedded, always acting operating system that powers the entire organization. So the mindset pivot should change should happen, and you have to treat compliance as a strategic enabler, not as a checkpoint. And the leadership tone, or the tone that they set from the top, as we call it, it has to prioritize a real-time risk monitoring, automation, and cultural integration over periodic audits, right? So the practical changes they can bring about is they can champion cross-functional ownership, empowering teams with tools for continuous control testing, reward proactive ethics and adaptability to regulations, viewing updates as routine evolution. So this is a change. So the more you reward exemplary behavior, right, that actually reinforces a very positive security culture. And then shifting metrics from project milestones to ongoing resilience and business value. This is another practical change that they can think through. I think these points actually make it, mind shift change can happen at the leadership level, right?
Sir, if you could redesign a modern GRC stack from
Hmm.
scratch today, what three, four non-negotiable capabilities would you like to include?
Oh, okay. You have to change the times. There are a lot of GRC platforms that have been there in the market for a long time. So when you redesign a modern GRC stack, must prioritize automation, real-time insights, seamless integration to handle continuous compliance in dynamic environments. We do have a very good set of vendors who are doing all of this. So the core capabilities should focus on proactive risk handling, evidence automation, and AI-driven intelligence across all the three governance, risk, and compliance functions. The first thing is the continuous controls monitoring. So when you enable real-time automated validation of controls across environments, alerting teams to failures instantly, rather than relying on a periodic audit. This actually shifts the GRC from function from a reactive to a proactive mode, right? And it also reduces the audit prep time very significantly. Second thing you could do is the AI-powered risk analytics, right? So when you incorporate predictive analytics to identify emerging risks or regulatory gaps and patterns from vast data sets, right? It actually helps the organization in building a very modern GRC stack. So features like AI-driven insights and autonomous workflow make your GRC program scalable and very strategic. The other thing is the unified evidence and workflow automation. So when you automate evidence collection, policy management and workflows with native integrations to cloud or SaaS environment and other security tools. That helps a lot. A centralized platform would actually eliminate the silos and streamline, say, vendor risks or audits and reporting. And finally, the advanced reporting and dashboard, capability is very critical. So as you know, even you have a customizable dashboard which provides real-time, data along with modern data visualization for top leadership visibility, right? So this can actually give transparency and visibility into the compliance status and risks. So this ensures alignment with business objectives through risk-based prioritization. I think if these three or four items are done, probably this GRC stack would be really be good. Yeah.
Thank you for that, sir. From your experience, what
Mhm.
do auditors really look? Because we are talking from a compliance perspective, right? So, and
Mhm.
what they quietly ignore. So, one part is what they look, what is that they ignore, and when they talk into AI enabled organization, how do they look at it?
See, when you look at all these seasoned auditors, when they look into AI-enabled organizations, right? They mostly look for evidence that the AI is governed like any other production system. So, do we have a AI governance program? Right? And with the most modern data controls and model controls, right? And they often ignore the very glamorous, the shiny AI features if they if they don't change the measurable risk. So, what really they look for, these seasoned auditors in a AI enabled organization is first, as I said, is a clear governance of AI and accountability. Have you defined owners? Have you have do you have approval gates for model deployment? And what kind of documented policies covering your development, deployment, and ongoing monitoring? All of this is one area. The second area could be on the kind of security controls around the data and the model, right? So something like how about access controls, the encryption, audit logs, all of this for who accessing the training data, the prompts, model endpoints, and outputs, right? So all of this, including cloud logging coverage end to end. So this is about the security controls. Third area they will be looking for is the uh, threat and abuse readiness specific to AI, right? Testing and mitigation for prompt injection, data poisoning, and third party model supply chain risk, right? All of this. And also the cycle documentation. That's something that links to controls, model purpose, model limitations, data sources, and handling, including testing outcomes and evidence of ongoing monitoring, right? Any anomalies or any control effectiveness, all these things they look. When you develop AI models using responsible AI, of course, responsible AI principles also kick in, right? Kind of, do you have human in the loop, oversight, all of that we look. And when it comes to what they quietly ignore, right? AI washing, what we call as AI washing dashboards, is something aspirational slides they put, right? That isn't actually tied down to any control operation. There are no logs, no tickets, no metrics, no evidence track. It is just a wish list with a fancy slide or two, right? And one-off model explainability demos that don't connect to governance artifacts, right? So artifacts like your approvals, monitoring, and incident response paths, all of that is missing. And claims of we you use an industry framework. When you say you use an industry framework, you should provide evidence which framework, how it is integrated, all of that. But many folks, try to whitewash by saying you are using some governance framework without giving any evidence of repeatable process and operationalized monitoring. So that's again a thing that they would ignore, right? Because these are all a lot of jugglery of words they use sometimes, right? And what litmus test auditors apply is if the organization can show a traceable chain from AI use case plus risk assessment to controls to monitoring to incidents or changes along with the time logs, timestamp and owners. Auditors would treat it as an unmanaged production risk because you are not able to demonstrate all of this, no matter how advanced your AI is actually, right? So I think these points are very pertinent when we think of this, issue. What actually auditors look for and what they quietly ignore. Yeah.
Sir, mm, normally it is not only with checklist that they look
Hmm.
beyond. What
Yeah.
signals tell the auditor that the organization is genuinely in control versus just audit coached? Because we at times we prepare only for the audit rather than
Yeah.
having that compliance pieces ready.
Yeah.
So your take on it, sir.
Yeah, many organizations are compliance driven. They just don't want to go beyond checklists. That's why we have the saying compliance doesn't mean you are secure, right? The
Mm.
company can have all kind of compliances, all the certifications, but still they can be hacked. And at the same time, let us also understand the limitations of being compliant, right? So it has to be done in letter and spirit. The controls we already spoke about, importance of controls testing, controls effectiveness, control design, plus horizon scanning for the latest threats and leveraging modern technologies like AI to ensure that we are actually optimal. And experienced security auditors spot genuine control through your operational maturity and evidence of proactive risk management, not just for a good looking checklist. Everything is correct, right? Everything is ticked correctly. We are all having not that way. So they distinguish the in control organizations by uh, signals of embedded security practices rather than a superficial audit prep. You should see the amount of audit prep many organizations do just a day or two before audit. They coach the stakeholders what they can speak, what they shouldn't, all of that. And what are the signals of a genuine control? So when auditors see maturity, right, the controls show consistent effectiveness via real-time logs, metrics, and tested remediation. So, for example, uh, automated alerting with ownership and SLAs met routinely. So teams demonstrate proactive solution, evolution of the controls effectiveness and policies updated post any incident or regulatory change with evidence of vulnerability prioritization based on exploitability, right? And not just scans. So these are all very clear instances which can actually help auditor gauge how genuine the control is. Clear ownership and traceability exist everywhere. Specific individuals accountable for controls with risk tied to business impact and board level reporting. These are all signals that tell a good auditor that organization is actually, in control. And when it comes to what are the signs of being audit coach, right? Or they just ignore uh, something like a very stale evidence, like old screenshots or generic templates without timestamps or context. These are all uh, very good red flags for auditors. Um, inconsistent implementation. There is no alignment with between the policies and what you practice. So policies may say one thing, systems may do something else, right? So that is again a red flag. And reactive firefighting shows up in ignored alerts, untested backups, right? Many companies take backup, but there's no testing or restoration test and stuff, or access creep without reviews, right? uh, how many organizations have a regimented scheduled access recertification campaigns, how often they do, how effective it is. So auditors probe for all this via interviews and log sampling, right? And over reliance on scans without pen testing or real world validation shows immaturity, right? And these are issues. The deciding factor could be if organizations in true control walk auditors through live demos of incident response or change processes, showing security as a business as usual than a seasonal scramble. So, security should be a way of life. The practices they follow should be a routine thing rather than some show they put up for auditors during their visit, during the walkthrough. That is not going to fly. I hope this gave an idea about this question. Right?
Yeah, I think what we are saying in as many words is that the tools are there to check, and
Yeah.
gone are those days where you had only to have a checklist done where you tick and say we are compliant, and that's
Yes.
where we were there now. Now,
Yeah.
one point where teams uh, obsess over auditors barely care is, and one area they ignore that auditors deeply care about. Any pointers
Yeah.
there where we can look at, Ramsar?
Yeah, so teams often obsess over perfecting your pen testing reports, right? And the vulnerability scan scores. They want to look good. They don't want to show the bad stuff. And but auditors barely care about if they're very seasoned. They don't care about beyond confirming they exist and drive prioritization. Raw numbers without remediation evidence means very little. So auditors can have low priority on these items like when security teams are fixated with flashy metrics. Uh, we call it as vanity metrics, right? Zero high severity vulnerabilities or exhaustive pen test catalogs, right? Or prepping binders of screenshots. They can bring in all the fancy binders, which is a lot of screenshots. And auditors glance at these things for completeness, but quickly move on to uh, you know other areas unless these are tied to risk reduction. Stale scans, very old scans. Many companies still, practice once in a year vulnerability scanning, once in a year pen testing. Unpatched trends signal uh, theatrical effects, not really having a good control. What would auditors would prioritize is what teams ignore, right? Business risk, aligned risk prioritization gets overlooked. So auditors probe how vulnerabilities map to revenue impact, how they are connected to customer data or operations disruption. They expect evidence of executive briefings and budget allocations based on exploitability, not just the CBSS scores alone, right? And they test this via interviews. They could talk to different stakeholders. Can risk owners explain the trade-offs? Live demos of change control or incident response reveal if security scales beyond checklist. So I think these points, are key to this question.
When you look at real organizations, where do
Mm.
the teams actually struggle more? And designing controls or producing clean, reliable evidence for those controls?
See, both are very important. You should be able to design the right controls,
Controls.
because test of design is as important as providing clear evidence. Both are very important. So I would give importance to both the areas. They are two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
Let us put it this way.
Sir, see, there is a life cycle that these evidences have to be tracked also, right? So,
Hmm, hmm,
across the evidence life cycle, collection,
hmm,
mapping, storing, review, which
hmm.
strategy breaks most often as per your experience, sir?
Sorry, collection.
Collection, mapping, storage, review.
I'm not very sure. Let's skip this question.
Because see, what I'm trying to find out is when there is
Hmm,
a risk, there is always a risk which is mentioned in the risk register, right? Or
okay.
that collection is done. How is that
Hmm.
mapping done, and how is it stored?
Ah,
Because every
okay, okay,
stakeholder has
okay.
a different requirement, and at
Hmm,
that
hmm,
time,
hmm.
how do you review each of the stakeholders' evidences, and based on which, how do we look at this? So that's
Okay, okay. I get it. I get it now. I get the context now. Well, collection is one part. How do you map it is very important to the business
yeah.
impact and likelihood that need to be mapped properly so that people understand the gravity. I mean the risk level, right? You classify the risk level and how it is actually stored and reviewed is the other part. Uh, the risk register, again, as I said, you can't just have a spreadsheet, though it is easy to do. It will not be an auditable evidence for auditors. Should be having a proper GRC platform on which you can record all this risk in a proper register module. And of course, you need to review them when you assign the risk owners and you assign the date within which this has to be remediated. And then you verify, an auditor can verify whether it has been remediated as per the original schedule, because everything is time. It has to be time bound. Risks, unfettered risks, which are not managed properly, can actually pose a bigger problem, bigger trouble for the organization. So any critical and high level risk tied to the business impact with a risk rating has to be addressed. The risk response has to be done within the agreed timelines. That is very important. And the verifiable evidence for the auditor, whether the risk has been truly mitigated or transferred, excuse me, are very important for them to review and satisfy whether it has been actually addressed properly. Yeah.
So I will come to the final question that I have. Then I'll take the takeaways that we have taken over this session of maybe about
Yeah.
15 minutes. Now, if a control owner is overwhelmed, what
Hmm.
is the first evidence related fix you advise them to make on Monday morning?
Sorry, if a control owner is overburdened,
Overwhelmed.
right?
What is the
Oh,
first evidence related fix you would advise them to make?
okay. Primarily, they have to address the risks, the controls that they have put in place. We'll have to see whether it makes sense in terms of the addressing the risks, whether the control is demonstrable, right, demonstratable to the stakeholders like auditors, whether the control has been designed properly, whether the control is effective in mitigating the risk. For example, I can explain with an example. Suppose you have a data loss prevention tool deployed to manage data loss by insiders, right? Data leakage by insiders. First thing is you look at whether it has been designed properly. It is only looking at the email as a vector or even the cloud. Of course, endpoints are blocked. Second thing is that is a test of design. Second thing is test of effectiveness. So try sending a sensitive data through email and try uploading via any cloud storage site or app. and see whether that DLP tool is able to block or flag it as sensitive and unauthorized action. So these things, when auditor is able to see through a demo or they test themselves, they can have some assurance that their controls are actually working. I hope this answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, Ram, sir. I have two comments which have come from the
Okay.
audience. I'll bring them
Okay.
here. Uh,
Sure.
Give me a second, sir. One pointer from Pooja, which says compliance cannot be static anymore,
Yep.
need to be continuous. So
Yep.
that's one comment from Pooja. I think that's a very
Yes, sir.
valid point.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Then we have another comment saying that given the audit work papers are client and auditor confidential documents, how and where would the training data be obtained to train AI enabled audit testing models in an ethical manner?
Yeah, of course. You can always you can't use real world data because it is confidential. But of course, you can create data. You can mimic the real world data without giving the actual values, and you can train the models. Right. That's how AI models are being trained when you don't have access to sensitive data from real world sources. So you will have to create. You can use synthetic data, and of course, you have to have an oversight whether this data is actually making sense or not. Not leave it to that. That's why we have this concept of human in the loop to review and approve. Maybe you can do a sampling test to see whether it is actually making sense or not.
Sir, with this, I would like to summarize some of the pointers that we have done over the last 50 minutes.
Yeah,
GRC is an AI world in not about more checklists, right? It is not about checklists nowadays.
yeah, yeah,
It's about smarter dynamic controls that build trust at board, employee and customer levels, right? So that's what we are
yeah,
saying. Talent, culture and communications are now as critical as tools, and frameworks determine whether controls actually work. So the
yeah,
frameworks are there to look at how the controls work. Convergence of AI, data protection, and regulation demands integrated governance, shared ownership, and cross functional collaboration, because we cannot have one team saying that I will not comply and the other team saying it is not. We will comply.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
cross
Absolutely.
collaboration has to look at as AI rewrites how threats appear and decisions are made. Leaders have a choice. They can either treat GRC as a break or as a trusted uh, chassis
Yeah,
that lets them accelerate safety into markets, new models, and new opportunities. That's the takeaway that I have, sir. Uh,
awesome.
any final pointers that you want to add before we say to the closure, sir?
Yeah, one point I always say, many organizations don't understand importance of having a GRC function. They don't believe in building a GRC stack or utilizing GRC platforms to manage their risks and compliances and through a proper governance mechanism. My take is, at heart, we are all techies, right? We love playing with technology tools uh, given to ourselves. But cybersecurity without GRC is just a hobby. So let us keep that in mind. I hope you will understand the real import of this statement if you think deeply. And I hope this would drive the message very clear why GRC and supporting platforms are very critical in today's threatscape, AI-powered threatscape. Even AI needs proper governance. So that shows how much critical this particular domain for managing risks and compliance. So that's my humble take on this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, audience, for joining. And we have streamed this podcast to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Have You can have it viewed at a later stage. The links remain the same. Thank you for joining us. And Ram, thank you for being here, sir. Great to
My
have you.
pleasure, sir. Thanks for having me. Have a good evening. Bye bye.
Bye.